Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. The title is The Thoughts We Never Had, or We Never Were. The Thoughts We Never Were. And I want to speak about how, in the human experience, thoughts appear, at least, I find, to the human experience as a second actuality. That means when I look at any object, there is the most immediate experiential, sensory-oriented reception of the object. Like right now I'm looking at a tree, I see that tree, but then there is like the second actuality of the tree. There is the subjective existence of the tree that I gotta consider. Or let me tell you the subjective experience, as if there's an objective existence, can't do much there, it's just how it appears. But then the way we experience this objectivity, it is accessible, or I could say subjectively it's flexible. That means I could totally see a tree can exist, but my experience of what that tree or that tree's existence could be different. The Buddha pretty much got a bunch of people, I don't know if with blindfolds or those people were blind actually, I don't know. But the idea was that a bunch of people were touching, they didn't have their sight accessible, and they were touching an elephant from different parts of an elephant. Somebody was touching the nose of the elephant. What is this weird rope? Somebody was touching, for example, the leg of the elephant and said, what is this stone column? And somebody was sitting on the top of the elephant somehow, and I don't know, still didn't realize it's an elephant, thought it's like just a high stand or something. Somebody touched the stomach of the elephant, thought it was a wall. So it was as if the subjectivity, it is a limited experience of our own experiences. So what does that mean? That means first there's a filter of sensory perception. Right now as I'm sitting here, I'm sitting on a porch. I notice that objective existence is just there, but the subjective angle of existing in multiple ways. It's as if we've been given an opportunity to experience the multiple ways our senses can be processed before they're processed. Sometimes I wonder what would life mean if we couldn't speak, if we didn't have language. Sometimes I wonder that, and I see that in some sense it has been a silent evolution, an incredibly silent evolution. That means there was a point where it was like the ultimate silence, where we had no consciousness or no conscious retention of phenomenology. We were just like a bowling ball, kind of just in a vacuum. So it's like you're given an objective existence, or there's sort of filter of your sensory perception of the environment. Then there is another filter, sort of subjective filter, all over your sensory perception. I feel behind our eyes, our attention is the center of life. In front of it, it is not. And just that knowing alone makes us comprehend more than our attention. I graduated from Toronto Film School, and I mean, definitely there were things about that school that could have updated, but at the same time, I got introduced to a sort of cinematic language, the importance of it, the crucialness of the cinematic language in front of a person's eyes. And then I noticed something very fascinating, that my whole life, my inner realms, my subjective phenomenology had appeared as a sort of internal cinema. Because, like, if I say the word apple right now, some people might be seeing the letters in their head. When I said apple, they may see A-P-P-L-E. Okay? Some people might have seen an actual image of an apple. Okay? And so that's the difference. That's the difference of paying attention to how the inner realms is, how would I say it? Anyways, I feel this inner cinematic film is occurring because we're oscillating between the known and the unknown, the simple and the complex, and in some sense a reality where it's solid. Like when I look at materialism, it's like a solid state for a substance. When I see immaterialism, it's like the gas state for the substance, and it's like human existence is the liquid state in between. That we're not 100% known and we're not 100% unknown, and it is between this sort of spectrum that our actions and activities and just the way we live projects and arises, I feel. So, so everybody, welcome to the chat section. If there's anyone who has a question or wants me to comment on something on the topic, just put MW at the beginning and I'll engage the chat section. But welcome everybody. So the thoughts that we never were. Let's dive into this a bit more. Let's say you're a human being and you're told that you're terrible at snowboarding, for example. Then you go your whole life feeling you're terrible at snowboarding, and suddenly you try snowboarding and you see you're not terrible. Do you know it's not? Let me tell you, there's something about too much conditioning that it becomes your own conspiracy theory. That means like whatever conditioning the person has been through, you've been through it. The past is past. The decision of your next step really suggests how far your conditioning has affected you or not. You see, guys, I don't know if people hear the sound of the sirens in the back, but that shouldn't be the sound of an advanced civilization. Alarm is okay in certain states. I mean, when you're getting ready, like you know how many people saw Maximus in the movie Gladiator, kind of wash his hands with dirt before he kind of went to fight. You saw that the gladiator was like, all right, we came from dirt, we're going to go back to dirt, let's get our hands dirty. And he would, in some sense, make his inner realms humble, which is a thing not a lot of people do when they start off an action. Most people want the outcome, so they don't have the focus of the beginning stages of something. I was like that personally. Personally, I wanted the end of things. When I was younger, I assumed I knew what people were talking about just from like a couple way. They just like a few words they would say. I had the sort of arrogance to assume that I knew. You know, it took me a lifetime to realize I don't know anything, guys. Usually the child is born thinking I know everything. Yeah, I know this. Only to see that there's, just like Jon Snow, we know nothing. You know. For a while, I was looking at life and I was wondering how far is the intelligence Eckhart. There was a time I felt that I went through a solipsist phase, and a solipsist phase means when you feel it's only you here. So you can say solipsism is kind of strangely close to Albert Einstein's definition of insanity. But I'll tell you this, here's the thing. You are an object and a subject simultaneously. You require to be an object to be a subject. You require to be a subject to be aware you're an object. So there's a codependence of a phenomenology of mind that is not an object and the phenomenology that is the object. Okay, now we can have, for example, Jean-Paul Sartre, certain schools of French existential atheism kind of looking at this and being like, yo, Mr. Within, why do you keep seeing the surface and the depth? Aren't they the same thing? And I'll tell you, yeah, of course, but the thing is, we are not the same thing. That means when I look at the surface of the ocean, I don't see the depths. And when Jean-Paul Sartre said the essence is the appearance, is the surface, in some sense, I kind of can't walk in the halls of that school. Because on some level, there is an unknownness to the movement that is constituting the meaning of life. That means this is the issue, that we don't notice it's unknown. We think it's known, and we cover it up with layers of language. And let me tell you, the kind of knowing and certainty of human beings I see on this planet is like the emperor's kind of invisible clothing. Like that story where this emperor, like these two businessmen, these two, like, I don't know, immoral merchants, they see this king that's kind of like, look, that's what I think. Honestly, the emperor's new clothes is a strange idea of how I feel kind of where Instagram is going. Where for a lot of people, especially a lot of beautiful girls, they feel that they are queens because they have no clothing. Not that everything should be clothed. I mean, freedom is freedom, but I'm saying that reality needs to have a discretion in how the story is told. Oh man. Ah, what can we do? We just exist in space, and the moment we move, time becomes applicable. The moment time becomes applicable, we're individuals moving in time. When we're individuals moving in time, we have this sort of sub-delay of the inner realms moving faster than the outer realms, so the person feels they have choices and free will in the world. I feel free will is how the mind is moving faster than the body, because literally, if the world was changing faster than the human being, there would literally be no world for the human being to be on. So I think free will at its core can be a pure definition of how one dimension is more intelligently observing or moving faster than another dimension. And what's really fascinating is that we human beings get access to our dimension through light. And then if we want added dimensions to the dimension we see, then we, for example, engage with our other senses. For example, I've noticed that when I close my eyes, for example, I've tried this. Sometimes I've ran at a fast speed, and I don't recommend people to do this, but I tried it out. I ran at a fast speed, and I decided to close my eyes for a moment. And the moment I closed my eyes when I was running at a really fast speed, I lost an orientation. But it wasn't that I lost my orientation to the environment, it was that my reliance on a certain sense had made me not rely on the other senses. So here's the cool thing, that regardless of how multidimensional the world is, how multidimensional, whether it's void, singular, dualistic, infinite, regardless of the multidimensionality of the world, if the self is multidimensional, we'll never figure out if the multidimensionality is from the self or the world. So human beings are kinda in this. I feel this is the grand question of our time. Pretty much, I feel all knowledge has been the wonder of, is the human being here or is the world here? If we assume the world to have an intelligence that surpasses the dimensional grasp of the human being, whatever way we define it, then we are the world right now. Guys, I got an interesting question for the chat section. Anybody can attempt an answer. So, guys, I've asked the question in the chat section. Pretty much, I thought it's definitely an incredible title. I might give a talk on it too. But is nothing nothing? The way I'm kind of suggesting that is whatever you as a human being you conceive the concept nothing, whatever it means to you, the absence of whatever that is the opposite of nothing for you. I'm telling you, what if nothing is a mirror? What if on the other side of the mirror there is a reality? For example, when you see your reflection in the mirror, you don't see what's behind the mirror. I mean, what's behind the mirror. It's like the wall of your bathroom or whatever. But I'm saying, like, there is something behind the mirror. And something about identity is that it's self-reflective. It's kind of like we're first seeing ourselves as an animate being, and then through how we are aware we're being animate, we are evaluating the animateness of others. You know, right now I'm staring. Right now, as I'm talking to you, I'm staring at a squirrel on a tree. Okay, and not only do I notice that squirrels run in like jump, like move in a sine wave kind of way, their tail. But I also noticed that it is in some sense like observance, action, engagement, observance, action, engagement. Observance, action, engagement till the end of its existence. And sometimes this observance can be like sleep. So what I mean by that is that whatever we choose to storify life, whatever way we choose to allow language to hover as a mask of truth for our sight, it is a momentary engagement with unknown variables. That means when I saw a lot of people planning for the future, I mean, I understand. I understand it's good to be farsighted. It's good to look at things and wonder how far they can go. Okay, guys, I wanted to write something to kind of respond to your comment being human. But I'll tell you this. What if the only way you could see nothing was that if you were nothing? Could that be the case? Could that be the case that we see what we resonate with? Intelligence is so multifaceted, so multidimensional, that it definitely surpasses language. And I'm kind of standing here, in my own room, in my own corner of the universe, wondering, okay, life, is this all you want to show me? Just repetitions, just cycles, just the rise and fall of civilizations. Is this it? Sometimes when I look at a tree and I see a bird has made a nest in it, I'm like, why? And I know it's a silly question, of course. There's a lot, incredible evolutionary biological explanation for why the bird is making a nest. But I'm telling you, when I say why, it comes from the mystery of a design level. That means I think you literally open up to your scholarly mind when you realize that language is open-ended till the end of time. So the Crypto Jedi says nothing is. The Crypto Jedi. Okay, nice name. You got Crypto Jedi powers. You raise your hand and cryptocurrency stocks increase. Nothing is everything, is it not? Incredible question, but it's not. No, nothing is literally like we have light and darkness, we have nothing and everything. They are codependent, but I wouldn't put them in the same. The terms exist to be reverses of each other. So you can say nothing is the absence of everything, or you can say nothing is just you put a space between the O and the T and it becomes no thing. So we can totally say a subject is nothing, an idea is nothing. It's not a thing. It's literally not a thing. It's visible. I can visualize an apple pie hovering in the air in front of me right now, but it's not a thing. It's technically no thing. It's nothing. Do you see? So dimensions that are out of substantiality for the experiencer, dimensions that are not experienced as a tangible subject, they are closer to nothing. So I would say our experience of everything we have ever seen is like everything. Yes, they're codependent, Crypto Jedi. That's what I'm saying. They're two sides of the same coin. But they are not the heads and tails are not the same picture, but they're technically the same coin. You know what I mean? This is the fascination for me. What is death? Death is like a thought that never existed, is it not? That means I mean, I haven't physically died, but in my inner realms, in my inner realms, I have died, and I have transitioned out of body. That means in my dream states, I've experienced various embodiments of myself. But in my conscious waking states, I've only consciously throughout the day experienced subtler subjective bodies changing. That means people don't realize it, but every time there is a new idea, literally the space of your attention is being occupied by the new. What does that mean? That means that squirrel I was seeing running on that tree in my yard, that squirrel was running to different locations. So it's as if the human being might have karma, but it is never the same karma if the self or the world is changing. Do you know, we are talking about ourselves like paintings on the wall, not realizing an entropic nature to a universe means that change is the ultimate motive. That means we are more the thing we are not, we are more the change than the thing that's changing. That's kind of where I'm kind of being led to in the sense that, all right, like my first name, actual name is Amin, and so I was kind of like raised with this name and with this ideology and with this backstory, you know, only for myself to realize that when I die, there is no one with a name. There was never anyone as if ever existed. So for me, it's like every human being is living its life, and eventually there will come, I feel, a strange archaic revival for the shamanic fascination. You see, it's like we're shamans of a technological era. We are shamanic in our activities in the sense that right now, everybody who's tuning into this talk, you're literally turning on a device and suddenly information is being accessed. Imagine the shaman had invisible technology. And what could that invisible technology be? I think it's an acquaintance with the experiencer beyond condition. So that means most things you experience in this life is conditional. Right now, me giving this talk is conditional to my health, it's conditional to my energy, it's conditional to my motivation, to my interest, for my care for even the concepts. Do you see? It's conditional. But if you can find a state that's unconditional, that is the true holy grail of mysticism. It's not per se a freedom through a story. Like, it's like you shouldn't be looking for too many stories in this life because the character and the setting change, I feel. All right. I feel we are living more than one life. I think we're just not aware of it because we have been obsessively defining reality in accordance to rational empiricism, not realizing that all objects have a subjectively imposed context upon it. That means no object has a name. Anybody who sees that, you're a friend. You're a friend of my vision. That you see that objects and the names and the identity and the subject and the object, even though simultaneously acknowledged as one phenomena, are separate. Anyone who notices that, you'll suddenly notice how this world is not per se a game of knowledge. This world is like a surfboard. It's about your balance and your experiential journey of it. That means a surfer, there is no test, there is just piloting of navigating of the surfboard. Excuse me. I'm thinking, it's this whole episode is just the wonder of how a human being can go its whole life thinking it's a thought, wanting to be a certain thought, only to realize everything is written on an empty page. That's when true wisdom finds you, when you can see the absence of everything that is there. It's for me. There was a time where I could have just spoken about good things and felt blissful about it, or I could have just spoken about chaotic things and felt sad about it. But then there came the dual mind, a sort of everything I would see its design. Like some people might not consider this, but sometimes when I walk in nature and I see all the, how they say there's no straight lines in nature? When I walk in nature, I wonder what if all the trees were straight? Or what if all the branches of the tree, there was no curvature? Everything was just straight line, straight line, straight line. And then, in my inner realms, I've agitated myself. That means too much of a crystal perfection. I think it leads to a sort of agitation, because the human survival game is not per se a gentle one. Even though civilization requires gentleness, even though Mother Teresa, Gandhi, and Martin Luther King, they're like, all right, we want to be in a world that it's gentle enough that we don't judge each other, we don't attack each other because of color differences. That's the stupidest thing. Like, in some sense, you know how many colors there are in life? That means sometimes I've thought about it, that all those people in the world who they have been racist, did they have an issue with color? With color? Like, imagine someone hating the color blue. I was like, what the it's like color is everywhere. It's the differences in color that give beauty to the canvas. And so a civilization trying to make everybody like clones is a blind civilization. I'm telling you, that's the, you want to know what's the fastest way for a civilization to destroy itself? Make all its members become clones, become like each other. They'll go. It leads to insanity, because you know why? Because you need novelty. Novelty is like the breathing room of your mind. The new. There was a time where I thought I was so ignorant in my youth that I felt I knew people. Then I realized I have never known anyone, ever. I have seen them. I have seen dimensions of many people. Oftentimes when I see a person, I can instantly tell where their attention is going. Not to where, but where it's directed. That means, guys, you might not believe it. There's been times where people have just talked to me, and I knew which angles their eyes were going to move. Because when a person talks, none of us, we don't realize it. But if you as a human being just try it out and start explaining something, strangely, the space where your imagination occurs is simultaneous with objectivity. So it's like you're in two rooms at once. In one room, it's the laws of nature. This is the room in front of your eyes. And the room behind your eyes, you can imagine yourself floating in the air, or you can imagine any object hovering, and gravity doesn't act on your imagination. Gravity acts on your imagination if your attention chooses it. This is why people, right now, we say we dream. We feel as if the dream comes and finds us. We suddenly find ourselves in the dream. I'm telling you, and most likely 100 to 200 years from now, we are going to enter dreams at will. That means the human being will have an ability to be just walking in the park and just close its eyes and enter the inner realms. To be a truly subjective. I have experienced various ways of my own self. Again, I was saying, in out in you know, mainstream would acknowledge it as an altered state of conscious activity, but for me, the only thing that was altered was the doer, the sense of doership. That means right now when I'm giving this talk, it's like, of course, there's a sense of self here. I'm like an objective biological being, right? But now I'm kind of wondering, what if all our brains, what if evolution's doing something weird? Where an object, after some point, became a subject to itself. So when an object became a subject to itself, how is that subjectiveness arising? And for me, it has come to appear as if our biology is an antenna. Human life is like the frontal lobe of the universal sector, you know? We are receiving ourselves, or we are receiving our world and expressing ourselves. That's what's going on. We are translating how the mind is instantly being the whole moment, is being the whole world, into how the whole moment is being a self. Pretty much, guys, a collective intelligence found a way to individualize. Space found a way to move as matter. And I wouldn't be surprised that all education, academia, and knowledge is on thin ice. That one day human beings will realize we're on a sphere in a vacuum, and every word, concept, idea we have ever made has been our own paint on the face of the void, on the face of the unknown. I literally went through a transition in my life where I was no longer a thought to myself. It was so natural. It was preferenceless, really. It's as if, like, sometimes you realize it, that the person who really wants the desire, they really want it because they don't feel deserve it. That means one angle on desire, yeah, the person wants more than they need. But another definition of desire is that the person doesn't have the desire because they are at the state where the desire would manifest. If you notice, um, the state of consciousness of receiving a gift is different before you receive the gift and after you receive the gift. Before you have fulfilled your desire, there's this amazement, or I don't want to even call it amazement. There's this wanting, there's this wonder to see if you can win your own lottery ticket. That's what a desire is. You're trying to win your inner realms want the outer realms to behave in accordance to it, but you're gonna realize that causes karmic turbulence. So when I use the metaphor of the pilots of consciousness, I exactly made it for exactly these moments to talk about the sort of turbulence that happens at various elevations of identification as phenomenology. So if you want the outside world to be too much like your inner realms without first looking at the outer realms, there's karma. That means if I just don't care about the world, I don't let the world move first and I observe it, then that means I am walking in a world I haven't even looked at. But when I look at the world and I realize there's this endless landscape of information, and after a point you're kind of like choosing the tools at your disposal. So then knowledge becomes really determined by your question of the overall context that keeps the concept. That means I don't see people as being scientists, philosophers, religious people. I don't see people as being thought. Language is a lens. It's like clothing. You know how somebody just wears black clothing? You know? Like I don't know why just to make it easier for myself, I often wear just black. You know? But it's like a preference of a choice of display of narrative. So I am saying we are dressing up ourselves with ideas and constantly waking up the next day and being fascinated when we have to dress ourselves up again in idealism, in ideology. Let me tell you when ideology is bad. Ideology on its own is not bad. It's actually what we're using to record history. Ideology is bad when it becomes a box on a human's head. That's when it's bad. And that tends to happen because the child is starting at a weak angle. This whole life, the process of growth is from weak to strong. Okay? And why is it from weak to strong? Because there is intense things that occur on this planet. That means we're reaching a point where I'm realizing ever since I realized there has been war, guys, and there has been children in countries being bombed. That's when I realized there is no longer any rating system to anything. That the child's psychology has been exposed to savage decision making of the elders of the moment. You know what that means? That means if someone 10 years younger than me is speaking to me, I consider myself to be responsible for the world more than them. I don't know why, but I just consider that. And if there is someone older than me, there was a time I would consider them. I would consider them to be more responsible. But then I realized I am them. Everything you think you are not, life goes through so many ups, you know, so many upper curves, like roller coaster turns, that you eventually see things through multiple angles. So if you don't have the contentment, some people feel depressed and stressed in their life. Let me tell you, there's no such thing. It's more like you're just getting feedback from how your mind is generating yourself in various moments. The definition of life, it's too mysterious, dynamic to be defined. That means if you define it, it's your choice how happy you are with the definition. Of course, certain things can be defined, but to fight for the shape of truth in a changing world where shapes all change all the time, I see no other path through an advanced civilization other than a playfulness and a sort of relaxed state with language. People are too intensely reacting to the phenomena of this world as thoughts that they were just spoon-fed. That's why I'm saying, I'm like okay, what's this life? Anytime you're an individual, ideology like gum gets connected to your foot, to your shoe. So that's the thing. We can't be an individual without existing or experiencing a sort of linguistic simulation. So it's fair to say that language is a technology that arises when you are moving as an individual. Language is a technology for individual consciousness. Silence is a technology for collective consciousness. And it's not that silence is a technology. Silence is a realization. What does that mean? It's like a self-realization. There's something about yourself right now, as Mr. Within is speaking, that you haven't noticed yet. But if you do notice that, then you will notice that the choice of movement is originating from where your attention is originating. And there is no greater freedom. I can't literally fathom any other argument than in some sense energy is being free will as a instantaneous moment of attention. If it moves, the free will becomes identified. So it's like you can't move in this world without appearing to others as an individual in a narrative. And we see this all the time with this whole political correctness thing. These poor comedians in America, that they're kind of like being this mob mentality of sensitivity to the wrong language and the right language. I mean, we have to kind of police language in regards to hate crime. I mean, that's still like an obstacle the civilization has to get through. But I'm saying that we have to also realize the intention of the human being is not necessarily what the audience heard. That means, me personally, as someone who's, I talk a lot. And as someone who's talked a lot, I can tell you that there has been incredible encounters I've had with people where I instantly knew what I said had a way of value in my eyes that it might not have to the audience. I noticed that the audience can never see how I saw my own talk through my eyes. So when I realized we each have our own inner realm, and the inner realm can't become the outer realm. If it does, that's a sort of material slavery. You know what that means? That means somebody is getting rid of your free will by telling you to keep looking at just the object part of the moment. Your free will is not necessarily an object. It could be a higher dimensional technology that we have no way of codifying, or comprehending, simply because our language is built, imagine, in a 2D dimension, but our minds are 3-dimensional. So we can't use a 2-dimensional language to explain a 3-dimensional phenomenon. And if we do, it's going to be a complexity of various planes. That means science is kind of ascending towards truth. Religion is descending from truth. How hilarious. One is falling down, one is climbing up. One is trying to rise towards truth, the other fell from truth, And both of them held apples at some point. For me, Isaac Newton was like the anti-Eve. Like we have antimatter, it's like the anti-Eve of secular culture, But anyways. Guys, of course, I'm a person who, how would I say it? Language is art, and art is expression's attempt. Material slavery is when the intelligence of the object defines the capability of the subject, and it will always fall short. Your mind is moving in way more advanced ways than your body. This is why the human mind processes things, then moves. Just like that squirrel on the tree, there is something from the squirrel, as the squirrel, as part of the engagement. That means I thought, how hilarious is it? Human beings, we study atoms, right? But then I thought, what if atoms were studying us? Okay? And atoms were like, how the hell are human beings here? And we're like, how the hell are atoms here? Guys, love is not gonna be the only thing that's gonna help build an advanced civilization. To be in a world that is multidimensional but trying to see it in one dimension all the time is very unnatural. That means I endorse a oneness that has only inconceivably through a dynamic realization that it's inseparable. All those people looking for ego unification, there was never such a thing. It's just attention moving. It's your presence before your personality. And once you get acquainted with your presence, literally think about it this way. What are human beings doing? They're just waking up and running to work. And that's the thing. Our whole life is defined in accordance to our movement and our sound. So if we have moments throughout the day for 10 to 20 minutes where we just go to a park and sit beside a tree. Imagine you're a billionaire. You have the most expensive suit on. Your Rolex watch is like like it's an Apple Rolex watch. I don't know. It's so you have this kind of like you're this billionaire and endlessly busy from the beginning of the day, like a king in a throne room, endlessly attending various things. Then imagine one day the king just goes outside in the kingdom and goes in somewhere in a forest and just sits down. Imagine a king just sitting down humbly. That's the thing. We need moments where we just sit and let the waters of the day settle. Usually, days where in the beginning I make mistakes and the day gets a sort of chaotic angle, chaotic karmic vibe to it. That's when I just sit for 10 to 20 minutes and I don't think. I'm not doing any meditation. It's just I'm letting myself be an object in an objective world and I'm watching how subjects arise. That's it. Just like you go to a cinema and you watch a film, literally just go sit down and watch what happens for 10 to 20 minutes. And the right way is not to be in a sort of posture, not in a specific kind of focus on the posture. Your body should feel like a rock to you. It should literally meditation, your physical posture, whatever it is, its stillness needs to be like literally you put a tray of tea on a table. Like literally the object is put somewhere and it's still. The whole point of it is to be still, to just be, not to have an effort to keep yourself still or silent. Don't put an effort. The moment you put an effort, you haven't understood why you're even meditating. It's more to just let the water settle. A pond doesn't need to meditate. The pond needs to just stop having rocks thrown in it. Okay? Needs to stop throwing rocks into itself. You know, there's something about this wallpaper. Usually I find these wallpapers in random sites. Like, it's like she is playing the instrument of her lifetime and her attention is to her instrument, but she's playing it in a lake that's reflecting the sky. Yeah. Okay, interesting question. Good question. Guys, I don't know if it's directed at me. JH, clarify if it's directed at me and I'll give a great answer to it. Because emptiness will be turned back. Because people have an impression that metaphysics means to escape matter. It's a full circle. You're going to realize the divinity is right where you were. All right. I feel I'm going to speak to you about how to pilot as a collective mind, what it really means, where all of esotericism leads, and I think that's how I'm going to end off the talk. Dear human being, your eyes open. You don't know what you are, you don't know what the world is. First, it's a sensory grasp. Your senses take in the world, you inhale the air of your world and you breathe it in. You just take it in, and the first inhale has no purpose. But then, after the exhale and the inhale, eventually life from this random movement, from this random happening, needs to fall into some organization, but the need doesn't come from a self and the conditioning. The need comes from the voice of your presence. That means I want you to wonder, when you look at an animal, when you look at any other human being, when you look at any creature in this world, what is it that separates them from, for example, a cup in a cupboard? What separates animal life? What separates the living from the dead? What separates the animate from the inanimate? And it is not the image, it is not the atoms, it is how it's moving. It's how nature is moving. Every enemy in this life I fathom, I was a fool not to see it was nature behind it. I say that after idol worship, we went to language worship. And that means after we were done with having a relationship just with objects, we started to become addicted to stories. And we have been endlessly seeking stories, and we think the better our story is, the better we survive, not realizing throughout the whole journey it's a living phenomenon. This world was alive and you could have communicated with it. That's the teaching of the presence. There's a sort of recognition. You need to have a maturity in your inner realms if you want. This is, of course, on you can say entertain these ideas. I'm saying that means Aristotle says it's a sign of an educated mind to entertain an idea without accepting it. But I'm saying that I've kind of, in my inner realms, have had moments where here's the levels of the I don't want to say dissension, but levels of subjective dissolution before the experiential witness becomes its own prime movement. So how does that happen? So that happens in the way where first you feel you're an individual, you're an object, and you think you are only you when you wake up. So a lot of people don't care about their sleep state. A lot of people don't care about their dream states. It's irrelevant to them. It's like, every time the scientists dreamed, that dream was woo-woo, and so it's like woo-woo, there's more woo-woo than there is reality, it seems. Because we don't see the edges of this universe, and there's literally black holes. I mean, it doesn't get more woo-woo than a black hole in space. It's like, the child asked the father, it's like, Dad, why is there a black hole in space? Why? And this father started crying. I don't know, son. I don't know. There's black holes even in the mind. There's moments of inconceivability of the state of being. You as a being, you have a wisdom that surpasses ideology. It's more rhythmic, and it opens. That's the best way I can say life is. That it has endless unknown dimensions. That as you just trust it, it opens. That's it. It's not too much of a complex piloting. It's just trusting how your mind is behaving, because you are kind of meant to be an audience of your own mind. That means I noticed that the way we're designed, our intelligence is designed, we are meant to look at ourselves before others. Even though our eyes, the biological design is like our eyes aren't above our heads. Like I thought, like a third dimension view. Like I was thinking, if we were supposed to evolve to survive, wouldn't it make sense that our eyes were in the highest point so we could see our whole body from above our heads? Wouldn't that be the best survival strategy? That means I'm surprised why we didn't grow our neck on our back as an animal. That's why I'm surprised that we were this four-limbed animal and we didn't grow our neck on our back. We grew it at the front. So you see, it's like the design is so unique that it doesn't even match. I guess this lens is a linear approach too much. In your inner realms, the hierarchy is like this: you're an individual object, okay? Then individual object that is conscious, a conscious individual object. That's the pretty much starting point. So because we're all in a mainstream kind of, in a secular, the world's becoming secular place, so I got to start from a secular place, you know. So first we are conscious individual object. I think everybody can acknowledge that to some people. You're an individual, you're an object, and you're conscious. Okay. So now this is the starting point. So even if you had a piece of paper right now and you wrote the word conscious and you wrote the word individual and you wrote the word object on a piece of paper. I don't know, maybe for the sake of this exercise, if you have a piece of paper in front of you, do this. But now I want you to draw an arrow right underneath conscious, the word conscious, and I want you to put in the word unconscious. And I want you to draw an arrow from the word individual and write in some sense collective. And I want you to, from the word object, draw an arrow right underneath it, same length of an arrow, and write subject. So what does that mean? That means because we're starting as conscious individual objects and there's still evolution going on, we have nowhere else to go other than to the reverse. So the more we go forth in time as a species, the more we're gonna become. We're gonna, like Carl Jung said, make the unconscious conscious. We're gonna discover the individual's value more collectively, and we're gonna see objects more superiorly through subjectivity, which has already happened. Right? The fact that I am right now speaking, some of these words can correlate exactly to an image of an object for you. That means what I find fascinating is that the more people that see the artwork, the more people that listen to the talk, the more different versions of the talk are existing in space and time, or have been at least expressed in space and time. That means I feel strangely that we are like an we are an antenna but a speaker at the same time, like a music speaker. You know what I mean? Like a sound speaker. Like the hardware. Like we receive and we express, and we receive and express and receive and express, and that's the whole point of just like the heart beating and the inhalation, exhalation, and the constant sleep and waking up and whatnot. We are moving towards, and imagine you add at the end of the individual conscious object, you put static. That means we're thinking ourselves as a static image right now. There's going to come a time where the subjective evolution is going to associate with a pure experiential domain. What that means is the mind is only here because we don't know we are more than the mind. When we know more than the mind, then it's kind of like the need for the mind vanishes. So there could be a huge potential in the future that we become a silent civilization because our minds have found some connectivity, either through digital means, which is highly probable, or through natural means, which is the archaic revival of the mystical force. You know? So I think it's fascinating that after some point you're like, you look in the mirror and you're like, is this a thought right now? beyond the thought. That's the task of the advanced communicator. That's the task of the pilot. How do we build a civilization that efficiently advances through its interpretations of the dimensions of this world? It's such an incredible time. This is the next evolution. This is the coolest point to be alive. We are alive at the most incredible time. And many people may think, well, how is that, Mr. Within? How is now the most incredible time to be alive? I'm telling you, because we are opening, the mind is grounding itself beyond image, beyond language. We are the ones that are to experience and pioneer the conscious world. We have first the selves become conscious, then the world becomes conscious. Then when the world is conscious, then the world, a conscious world, becomes the backup, and the selves can become unconscious. So an advanced civilization would literally mean its citizens are way more advanced than the civilization that they're building. But if the civilization is super advanced, then the advancement of the individuals of that civilization is inconceivable. So anyways, guys, that's the end of the talk. Thanks for listening. I'm going to open it up to Q&A for 10 minutes, and if nobody has a question, thanks for listening. So just type MW at the front of your question. I mean, just type, it's Q&A now, so people can ask. Okay, questions are entering this invisible mailbox. So JH says, why are you not streaming 24/7? Because I don't speak because I want to. I speak when the idea is there, when I have an inner vision of it. So whenever throughout the day, it doesn't matter if I'm like in the middle of like, I don't know, if I'm in the middle of work, or if I'm like, I don't know, like if I'm in the middle of like buying something at a store or whatever, like it's whenever the idea comes. I have just through the own way, my own experience before I gave these talks, I would write a lot. So I have a relationship with my inner realms where I've you don't know how many times I've just an idea has come to me and instantly I've written it down. After a while of doing that, then you realize the significance, or you notice importance. You kind of sharpen the blade of your mind in accordance to your alertness and attention to the world that is before what you want the world to be. And then you actually you notice the unknown. It doesn't mean the unknown communicates to you all the time, but at least you become aware that nature is here, you know. And so I don't know. I don't feel I've been called towards kind of doing this 24/7, but I think in the future, most likely something like that's going to happen, JH. P Turtle says, where do you see yourself in 5 years? You sound like this sounds like a job interview. I don't know how long my attention is going to play uh, with the elements. I don't know. I don't know how long I'm here. On some level, I have visions that I could see them taking, requiring me to be in this plane of existence for maybe like 40 more years. But there's also moments where I can see that it's like certain things. Like there's certain moments I've looked at the future and I haven't seen myself. Like, you know what I mean? There's certain points where they're just unknown gaps. And if when you've abided by your intuition for a while, you know what to let not touch in your inner realms, and you know what to touch after a while. I mean, guys, I could probably do it. Something interesting is, I mean, I do multiple things, guys. I mean, this is Q&A. I can speak open freely. I mean, I can speak openly. Um, Here's the thing. Something many people, listeners of this channel, may not know. Um, in 2000, I started these talks in 2014, but in 2015, something strange also happened where I also opened up to this artistic dimension of drawing. So I draw a lot, and recently I've kind of felt this calling towards, like, you don't know. For me, it's like it's everything in life is just multitasking. I don't think ever there's any other strategy other than multitasking. You know, let me tell you why. I mean, there is this attention, or I do one thing perfectly, then I go do the next thing perfectly. But I'm telling you, in this life, in accordance to your vision, just like you're an entrepreneur, you need a certain capital to generate a certain, uh, let's say, I don't know, economically poetical climate change in the market. So you need capital. It's like the more capital you have, the more your business has a body to move and do things, for example, right? um, I honestly don't know how to say it, but I'm gonna open a channel. I still thinking what to call it. You know, I think I might just call it Mr. Within's art stream or something. You know, so the thing is, guys, there's various avenues I've seen this thing go first, but I have these visions. I have these projects that just found me out of nowhere. And for example, one of it that you're like you were asking, where do I see myself in 5 years? Hopefully, I've been smart enough to accumulate enough to start a school. Literally, the next school. I want to start this establishment where I want to create the next school of Athens. That's my ulterior motive. But hopefully, something that I tell sometimes. My brother would ask me, like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I might be living in the Netherlands. I don't know. That's what I feel like. I need to live my life there. I don't know why, but here, guys, I'll give you a sneak peek because this is the Q&A at this point. I'll give you a sneak peek of like certain things I've been working on, for example. So I have this whole thing that you don't know how much of my inner realms geometry has been a crucial thing, has been a crucial point. And I have this sort of unique way of drawing things that really is more, it has an emotional dimension to it. Okay? So I'm kind of thinking right now, I've been dwelling in the mystical context a lot. Most likely, I feel I'm going to go towards how do I say it? I don't the arts and crafts, believe it or not. You know, like you don't know how many folders I have. I don't know, guys. I don't know where in 5 years I'll be. There's moments where I feel I can't even know where I'll be here tomorrow. Sometimes I have this feeling that when I sleep that I don't know if it's like you never know if you're gonna wake up. So it's really just on a trust of how far there is an energy to push something. So really, my mentality to life is really not. I'm not. There's no future to get. There's just endless push, like endless endurance. That's it. What else can there be? We're just trying to act like we're in a vacuum. You know. Guys, let me tell you what I think is going on. Let me tell you what I think is going on. I think these two neighbors are trying to show off their fireworks. Yeah, it's the show-off battle between two neighbors and their fireworks. This is what you find in Canada, guys. You thought Canadians are friendly. This is like a firework battle. Guys, I haven't finished the talk. You're celebrating too early. I'm joking. Oh shit, it ended. They listened, guys. These are conscious firework users. Oh, there we go. Guys, I don't know, but I guess whoever's listening, I guess the moment has automatically become we're celebrating. Let's celebrate something. What should we celebrate? We're gonna celebrate the concept of celebration. Guys, this is the Q&A. Don't expect a serious talk at this point, okay? Okay, alright. Let's go. Let's see that there were more questions, I believe. So, I don't know, man. In 5 years, I might be in the Netherlands, writing books on a boat in a canal. I don't know. The Crypto Jedi. Why do you feel about what you just imparted? I feel as though it is a good observation of the present moment and trajectory. So, Crypto Jedi, just be a bit more specific about, like, I can't remember what you're suggesting. Like, what do you feel about what you just imparted? So tell me what that's in relation to, and I can give you an answer. Okay. Ivan says shooting range. No, it's not shooting range, man. That was I've been enough physical battlefields. Guys, this is the Q&A. Feel free to also ask questions. By the way, don't be afraid to also challenge what I say, guys, in the comment section. It's like there was something cool about the School of Athens. I thought like that was like that was like the first kind of cinema, inner cinema. What does that mean? That means imagine you were a kid back in the day, and you saw your friend. You're like, yo, man. Let's say you were students back in the day of some university, and we realized in the School of Athens, Plato is giving a talk, and Diogenes has come to crash the party with a dead chicken. That there's a story like that. It's like, don't fear the question. It often holds the insight for the answer. Oh, the whole talk? I feel silence is a canvas, and every word I'm saying, I'm trying to paint a picture. So I feel I'm literally vocalizing my inner realms. And I have this whole ideology where I say now we used to be hunter gatherers of our outer realms. What does that mean? That means at some point the tribe had no clue what berries were. Someone went and found what berries were and like was like, yo, berries. And he brought the berries to the tribe. And the tribe was like, no way, man, berries. You know? And so we hunted and we gathered. And now it's no longer physical hunting and gathering that much. It's more a wonder of the mind, as Carl Jung would say. I'm kind of seeing like, it's like people should see Carl Jung as a general on the battlefield, shouting at the future generations, "You're alive once. Figure this out." I went as far as I could, and that's really what it is. I'm just going as far as I can, and then the rest is up to all those eyes that are going to come and make decisions on what happens to this earth. So my impression is that I am creating sound in the moment. That's my objective impression of my own talk. I'm just making noise. Like it's just that's what talking is. It's sound, you know. Terence McKenna was like, we're not, it's like we're advanced apes making sophisticated math noises, more accurately chimpanzees, but it's more like let me tell you, I explained it, Crypto Jedi. So guys, Crypto Jedi in the chat section is saying, is it all just I think you mean intuitional flow state? Yeah, but I don't call it flow state. I just noticed that in my moment there's unknown variables and known variables, and then I just sit down and I just become simple. I wonder about what's the simplest way I can just be a person right now. And I realize it's just I am being my simplicity. The complexity arises from the movement. So when you are comfortable with the silence and stillness before you speak, you are in your like your Wi-Fi signal, your phone signal. It comes out of the basement. So you see what I'm saying? It's for the oh yeah, there we go. Crypto Jedi guy says we have gone to get the fruits of our inner labors. Exactly. When I went to Rishikesh, India, there was this guy who people called him Guruji. I never knew his name till the end of it, but people called him Guruji, and everybody would kind of like bow to this guy, you know. And I'm kind of like I have, even though I'm a Persian kid, but I was like I'm too inspired by old school gladiator movies to just bow. You know, like, and so, anyways, at the end of it, I go to this guy and I'm like, "Listen, man, I've had this burst of creativity. What is this? What is this burst of creativity I've experienced?" And he looked at me and he said this word with his Indian accent. He was like, "Sanskara," and I was like, "What does that mean?" And he told me it's impressions. It's impressions from other lifetimes. That's how he interpreted it. And I was like, yo, man, weak analysis. Because I had considered that. The guy wasn't saying anything new to me. But he was saying that it's an accumulation. It's an accumulation of impressions. What does that mean? Just like you run on a battlefield, the minerals like the dirt on the battlefield connects to your boot. So it's kind of like as you're going as this transmigrating soul throughout like the eons, this dude was saying like you're getting impressions of your incarnations, right? So he was saying it's in some sense the guy in India that when I was there for 2 months living in an ashram, like in this yoga class, this guy was like literally saying that it was impressions. But then I realized something hilarious happening, guys. In India, they're trying to be secular. Even the yogis are trying to be the most secular. That means like they speak like psychoanalysts now. Now India is missing people who speak like actual yogis, you know? So that's the thing. When you look at the Western New Age community, you see like I don't know some of these people trying to act like Tibetan Buddhist monks. Like I don't know. You know, there's some people who totally, like the dude was born in England, but he feels he's a Tibetan Buddhist monk, and that there's no issue with that. I mean, ideologically, maybe that guy has seen patterns in his own life that resemble the little patterns of Tibetan Buddhism. But I'm saying, like there was this French guy that became an incarnation of a Tibetan Buddhist Rinpoche or something. But anyways, what I'm saying is, like, are we ready as a species to move beyond stories? And that means we have to have a new attention to language. So I speak when inspiration strikes. That's it. There's no secret. I drew this picture when I felt like it. And you don't understand. The emotions are an incredibly advanced tool. A person who can wield their emotions, they can in some sense have endless reserves of energy. You don't understand how much suddenly you going into a into a negative emotion, you literally, like a balloon, burst out your energy, you lose. So throughout the day, honor is a way of preserving the momentum of how your mind animates. And what is this honor? Honor at its purest level is to acknowledge what is. Sorry guys, I'm in the porch and this insect made a entrance. Alright, let's see. So it's a flow state. I mean, call it a flow state. I say a river of thoughts, whatever. I've called it a consciousness stream. There's so many ways you can acknowledge it. But for me, it's an experiential movement. And your experience is your presence, which is the witness of the conditions of life unconditionally. So guys, any more questions, or shall we land the plane? Okay. Thanks for tuning in, folks. There is way more to life than we know. And that's the most immediate reason, actually, to live, to go see what it is. Like, it's like our eyes are open once every day. We have to constantly put ourselves in states where we're being challenged to overcome our own past. That means it's like, think of it this way. Imagine whoever you are. You can even type on YouTube these work compilations, and you see these people in all around the world, these cooks, these street cooks, that they're doing some next level movement. The guy's throwing the bread like a meter across the room, and the other guy's like getting it with the tip of his finger, spinning it in the air and throwing it somewhere, like it's like some next level workmanship, right? So similar to that, I feel there is an inner style. And I think this inner style happens when you stay true to your inner realms, but you are not ignorant of the outer realms. And when you go living through life and eventually realizing it's like a signal-oriented thing. That means it's like the way life appears momentary, as a momentary vocation. It's literally like a wave. So it's as if like every day you open your eyes and various waves of how life's meaning can move is arising. So the greatest thing to say is now we had an era, like in the 6th century, all those belief wars, all the wars over languages, truth, ownership of truth. We've gone through that phase. Now we're reaching the point where we're seeing no longer the dark side of the moon when it's shining so bright. When the idea emerges, I give the talk. And the idea is, like, since 2014, I decided to give 10,000 talks before I literally transition out of this world. So that's the thing. I'm just attempting it. I'm that guy who's like, all right, let's give this a try. And then like if life says you can't go further, that's fine. I can't go further. But if life is saying go further, I'll see what happens. You know, there's something in life that when you see it's alive, you can't ignore it. And then you become responsible for the nature of your species. That means people are very self-responsible. They're responsible for themselves, but they are not responsible for their species. And not being responsible for your species means you only care for what you see. And there was a time where I remember, like, anyways, I'll tell you like this, where I got angry, you know, that it's as if, why does one person suddenly care, for example, for their family member more than they care for a person on the street, you know? So, JH, yeah, and I encourage people to send letters because letters can remain, you know? And hopefully in the future I can, what do you call it? Um, I had this vision of like talking in public, but putting like mirrors behind me so the audience would see themselves. I don't know why. I thought I'd be that speaker who was like, all right, this guy's gone into public, and people are going to be like, why is there a mirror behind his back? And imagine I write a wisdom quote behind my back. You know? Let me tell you why, guys. Because usually I've noticed this is an issue that it makes me laugh every time I see TV, that the people don't put mirrors behind them, like all these late night show TV hosts. They don't put mirrors behind them so people can see the audience. They use different camera angles. But I think that it's the livelihood of the moment, you know? Okay, so guys, questions are lining up. Nice. Pursuit of purpose, says Mr. Within. Where have you attained all this knowledge and wisdom from? The unknown. Yeah, just the unknown, man. That means I had a moment where I asked myself, what did I know? And I honestly say, I'll say it, Socrates freed me. I got a gift from a quote from Socrates. Socrates said the only true knowledge is to know you know nothing. What does that mean? That means the more you know in this life, the bigger the forest becomes, the more you explore with a lantern the forest. What does that mean? There is no end to knowledge. So I stopped fearing knowledge. And most people fear it because the world and the cultural and social program is defining them. It's like, do you know how many people I've seen that they literally change when the environment changes? It's as if the person forgets to be a human being. You know, and I was like that. I'm talking about it in a way where it was literally in my childhood. I don't know. I was like, if I had a time machine, you know, I'd just go back and just like pat myself on the back, and I'm like, all right, you're gonna be a fool for a couple of years, but don't worry about it. So I would say it happened when I realized I didn't know, and what I didn't know, the unknown, fascinated me more than what I knew. So I stopped fearing the known. So the known became second nature, the unknown became my action. So if people were like, what are you excited about? Like, what do I go look at in my spare time? Is endlessly trying to see how the world has comprehended the unknown. I see literally all life, all evolution as kind of, I see knowledge as an opportunity, not as an end to an all, you know, a means to an end. Let me tell you, everything can update, everything you can look at, and the mind has an ability to stretch it into a different context of meaning or a conception of meaning. That means I'm gonna give the listeners here a sneak peek, but like I'm dedicating a whole channel to this. Trying to start some kind of artistic renaissance or something. It's like, Mr. Within, why are you doing this? You know, it's like, I just want to see the world change, but a bit quicker. So, guys, yeah, if you see this, if you think I drew this geometrical shape all at once, you'll be like, holy shit, man, you're from a different planet. But I'll tell you, it wasn't all at once. Every part of this picture was an experience. This picture, drawing it, felt to me like living a lifetime. Every point of it. Like, I mean, how can I tell you, like, I don't know. I feel I have a certain level of a steady hand, but it's not. I don't think I have that much even a steady hand. I have a steady mind when it comes to drawing. Because of course you gotta understand the straight lines I drew; those were with rulers, but all the other variations were just the playfulness of the moment. How dimensions can stretch out of each other, you know. Yeah, so guys, this oneness, for example, I see being said in the chat section, that oneness is like the emptiness of the paper. Do you see? The emptiness of the paper is oneness. So this is why when you go towards mysticism, enlightenment is not for a person. You're not a person in that state. You're a presence, probably. You know, I say probably, I mean as a word to define it, because really it's neti neti all the way. Uh, but yeah. So that's what I'm saying. It's like the emptiness is the unity, or the potential for the unity, and then dimensions are added, lines are drawn, and with engagement, and if anybody understands the secret to befriending the spirit of importance, reality can be very emergent. You know. Yeah, JH, I have seen the movie Lucy. Yeah, that was a cool movie. I realized not a lot of people liked it, but I was like, that's probably the peak of Scarlett Johansson's career, where she actually became God. You know, it was like a yogi. The film Lucy was like a yogi dreaming. You know. Guys, every person's mind. This is why Carl Jung called it the unconscious. Think of your mind ever since you were born. In every day of your life that you've been conscious and awake, everywhere you've walked, your sight and senses have literally, like a scribe, written and in some sense you are filled with memories that hold design. And when you understand this, when you can acknowledge life from that individual story level of being a character in a story, you become just a design, a witness of design. Then the design, either it becomes really moves at a speed inconceivable, or the design dissolves again into the void. And what the void is pure potential. But it's pure existential potential. That void before we sleep is like the pure experiential potential. I'm telling you, trust is the key that unlocks the door of talent. But it's the trust in the eyes that you only can see through. So anyways, guys, I gotta end the talk here. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah. Why shall we fear when fear was a thought that we never were? Vision. Success equals efficient vision. And when that's comprehended collectively, humanity will be an incredible force. We will be the roar of an advanced civilization for the first time written in history books. Blessings.